Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Mike, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Sadie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the Organic Waste Virtual Town Hall. Thank you very much for joining us today. This town hall is to discuss new state organic waste laws and what that means for Placer County. We're going to have a presentation by Placer County staff. We also have the Placer Food Bank and the Sierra Community House that will be joining us today to tell us a little bit about their programs as well. We're going to go ahead and get started with introductions, and then we're going to go through a presentation. And then at the very end, everyone will have an opportunity to ask questions. And we have some resources for you as well. So I'll get started with the introductions. My name is Sadie Caldas. I'm with Placer County Environmental Engineering, and I'm working on SB 1383, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's the new organic waste laws. And so I'm working on the implementation for Placer County. And Chris, can you please go next?
Sure. Thanks, Sadie. I'm Chris Hansen. I'm also with Placer County's Environmental Engineering Division, and I work with Sadie on SB 1383 compliance as well. And I'll pass it over to Mike DePietro.
Hey, my name is Mike DePietro. I'm with Placer County Environmental Health, and I've been working with Sadie and Chris here, and we're going to handle a small portion of the SB 1383 regulations as it pertains to the edible food recovery program. I will pass it on here to Jason, my director.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jason Fleet, Placer County Environmental Health.
Thank you, Jason. And Mary, can you please go next?
My name is Mary Barker, and I'm the supervisor for the outreach program for the Human Services. And I'll just be assisting with some of the food recovery portion. I work with the food banks and the community-based organizations. And I'll pass it off to, I think, Jorge.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jorge Lupercio. I serve Placer Food Bank as the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Jorge. And Anne, do you mind going next, please?
Sure. Anne Rarick. I'm the director of the Hunger Leave program at Sierra Community House. We're located up in North Tahoe, Truckee.
Thank you, Anne. And then we have Michelle.
Hi, Michelle Darling here. I'm Community Development Technician here in Sadie's group, and I'm helping facilitate the meeting today.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone. And Michelle, can you pull the presentation back up, please? Okay, and we can go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so just to go over the agenda so you know what to expect in the meeting today, I'm going to give a little bit of background on organic waste collection programs in Placer County. We're going to talk about the new organic waste regulations, SB 1383. There's a proposed ordinance for organic waste disposal reduction for Placer County. So we'll be talking about the requirements in the ordinance, what that means for county residents, what that means for businesses, the commercial requirements, and there's also an edible food recovery program that we're going to discuss. Then we'll hand it over to the food recovery organizations to talk about their programs a little bit and how businesses can connect with them to donate food. And then we have some resources that we'll be able to give you, and then we'll do some questions at the end. And next slide, please. Okay, and so I wanted to go over a little bit about how organic waste collection already works. Some businesses may already know this, but we have a one big bin program in Placer County. This is where there's a one container system for mixed waste. Recycling and trash go into the same container, and it gets sorted at the materials recovery facilities where recyclables are recovered. We've referred to this program as one big bin. That's what you may have heard it called before, but this is really any mixed waste collection in the county, whether it's a single trash can, if someone has a toter, if businesses have dumpsters, It's the mixed waste collection program in the county that we really refer to as the One Big Bin program. Some organic waste is collected through One Big Bin. There's also some existing requirements from state law. It's AB 1826, Assembly Bill 1826, which went into effect in 2016. And that's what required the food waste collection. And so I'm sure there are many businesses that are probably on this webinar that have the food waste collection, where they have their one big bin, their regular trash, and they have a separate collection container for food waste. There's also some other special programs such as paper collection, cardboard, and in some areas, green waste collection. Next slide, please. I mentioned before about the One Big Bin program and how it gets sorted. So this slide just shows you a little bit about how the materials recovery facilities work. The material goes to one of the facilities in Placer County. We actually have two materials recovery facilities. The Western Placer Waste Management Authority is a materials recovery facility, and it's also where the landfill is located, and it's between Lincoln and Roseville. So the waste that's collected in Western County all goes to that facility where it gets sorted. And there's also transfer stations in the western area of the county. So all of the material that goes to the transfer stations then gets transferred to WAPMA, the Western Placer Waste Management Authority, and it gets sorted there as well. For Eastern County, there's the Eastern Regional Materials Recovery Facility. So all of the waste that's collected from about north of Colfax and all the way over to Tahoe all goes to that facility where it gets sorted. And these pictures just show you a little bit of what happens at the facility. So you can see in the first picture, this is where trash is going up to get sorted. It goes through a process where there's screening. There are some sorters that manually pull out certain material types. And then the third picture is you can see the end result. That's an example of a cardboard bale that's ready to be recycled. So that's just a little bit of how it already works in Placer County. Next slide, please. And then specifically for organic material, green waste and food waste is collected and composted. This picture is of compost at Western Placer Waste Management Authority, that facility in the Lincoln area, where material is going through the compost process. So this is an example of green waste and food waste being mixed together. Material is also chipped for mulch. In the Eastern County area, the food waste is transported to a different facility to be composted. And then some material is also used for biomass conversion. And next slide, please. Okay, so that wraps up our current programs, just a high-level summary. Next, we're going to talk about the new requirements. And Hillary, this is a perfect time to do that first poll question, please. Okay, great. So everyone should see a poll question pop up asking if you've heard of SB 1383, the new organic waste regulations. There's no right or wrong answer. They're fairly new still. So if anyone hasn't heard of them, that's okay. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
in the poll.
Okay, thank you very much, Hillary. Okay, so it looks like most people have heard of SB 1383, so that's great. Okay, and we can go ahead and then close the poll. Thank you, Hillary. So I'm going to explain a little bit about the new requirements. SB 1383 passed in 2016, which set targets to reduce methane emissions in California. Organic material creates methane when it decomposes in the landfill. The main organic waste materials that we're talking about when we say organic waste are food scraps, green waste, paper, and cardboard. The regulations for SB 1383 are now in effect. There's a 50% reduction in statewide organic waste being landfilled. That's the first target that was set for 2020. In 2022, this year in January is when the regulations took effect. The target from 50% bumps up to 75% reduction in statewide organic waste being landfilled in 2025. And then the other component to this is that 20%, one of the targets is 20% recovery of currently disposed of edible food also by 2025. And when we're saying currently disposed of edible food, we're talking about food that businesses throw away that would go to compost or landfill that could be donated for people that need food. Okay, and then next slide, please. This slide has some requirements that jurisdictions all across California are required to do by SB 1383. It requires jurisdictions to adopt and enforce an ordinance. We have to implement programs. We need to have organic waste collection service for residential and commercial customers. There's also the edible food recovery program for commercial generators that are required. So you may hear of other counties and cities also working on these programs. Some other requirements, just in case you've heard about them or you're interested, jurisdictions not only have to do the organic waste collection service and the edible food program, but there's specific requirements to conduct education and outreach. Jurisdictions have to procure a certain amount of organic waste, and it's based on population for their area. And so they have to purchase organic products to help with the market of organic material. Examples are compost, mulch, renewable energy. We also have to plan for capacity. So in two different ways, we have to plan for capacity at organic waste recycling facilities to make sure that the amount of organic waste being generated in the jurisdiction, to make sure there's enough capacity at the facilities to be able to take that so it can get recycled. We also have to do the same for edible food. We have to estimate the amount of edible food that's being disposed of in the county by commercial businesses, and then plan for the capacity that food recovery organizations have to make sure there's enough capacity that that food can be recovered and it doesn't get thrown away as well. And next slide, please. Earlier, I mentioned that there's a proposed ordinance. The title of the ordinance is the Organic Waste Disposal Reduction Ordinance. And this will be introduced to the Placer County Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, which is February 22nd. The ordinance has requirements from state laws and regulations. And like I'd mentioned earlier, SB 1383 requires jurisdictions to adopt an ordinance. So we worked with some model templates that CalRecycle had and tried to make an ordinance as flexible as possible for Placer County programs. And that's what we'll be taking to the Board of Supervisors to introduce it to them next week. Next slide, please. So the next couple slides, I'm just going to talk about some of the requirements in the ordinance. And again, if you have any questions about them, please feel free at the end of the presentation to ask those. The ordinance states that for residential and commercial, that unless the generator has been exempted or waived, to subscribe to collection service or self-haul to a recycling facility or manage organic waste on site. Examples would be by using it for animal feed or composting. It can also go to community composting. For the most part, this is going to mean the One Big Bin program in Placer County. Residential generators can use the regular trash service. The Western Placer Waste Management Authority is going to be improved to meet the diversion rates to be able to keep using our one container system for mixed waste. And so a high enough amount of that material will be diverted that we don't have to have separate bins for organic waste collection for residential generators. For most businesses, it will also be the same. There are some larger food waste businesses that already have a food waste collection program, and they will need to continue to use that food waste collection program. And for Eastern County, we're also working on a solution to try to use the same one container system for that portion of the county as well. The ordinance also requires that generators place designated materials in the designated containers. This is for residential and commercial as well. Some residences have a green waste bin, some businesses do as well. This means just put the green waste in the green waste bin or the food waste in food waste bin. And next slide, please. Okay, and before we continue, Hillary, can you please pull up the second poll question? Okay, and our second question says, does your business have food waste collection service? And again, if it's okay if you don't, no right or wrong answer, just trying to get an idea of how many already have service that are attending today. Okay, thank you, Hillary. I think we can close the poll question now and post the results. So it looks like quite a few generators do have service that are on today. There are some, because of the One Big Bin program in the county, there's a lot of requirements by SB 1383 that are already being taken care of with that program. There are some other requirements, though, that are in the proposed ordinance from the new state law that we do want to discuss, and some of them will apply more specifically to businesses that have a food waste container. So some of those requirements are to supply and allow access to containers for employees, contractors, tenants, and customers. In some cases, this will mean food waste containers that need to be available to customers as well. The proposed ordinance requires that generators prohibit employees from contaminating containers. Businesses would also have to inspect their food waste containers and inform employees of contamination. Annually provide information about proper sorting to employees. And if there's new tenants, information would need to be provided to them within 14 days. Commercial businesses would need to allow inspections by county staff or waste haulers, which would be the county's designee for this, and then comply with food recovery requirements if your business is subject to those. If businesses self-haul material, including backhauling, I know some businesses have corporate programs where they backhaul. And so including backhauling as well, businesses would have to keep records of self-hauling. An example is facility receipts, weight tickets, and the amount of material that's being self-hauled. There's a lot of these requirements I know are already occurring. Some of the businesses may have already had visits from some of the waste haulers. I know that we've provided some outreach materials in the past about proper sorting, and the county has different signs that businesses can use. So these are all examples of ways to meet some of these requirements. So it's a little bit more of an expansion on the existing program that we already have. Next slide, please. And this is an example of a food waste sorting guide. And so this is one of the posters that the county has available to assist employees with helping with sorting. So if you do have a food waste collection container, we're glad to share these signs. There's English and Spanish on them. There's a Recology and a TTSD version, depending on your waste hauler. And we have laminated signs available, or they can be downloaded from the Placer County website. If this is helpful, we'd like to encourage businesses to use them. If you have feedback for us, or if there's other outreach material that may assist, please let us know that as well. Next slide, please. I'm briefly just going to mention waivers. Waivers are part of the proposed ordinance. I wanted to let everyone know that they are out there. You may have heard of some of the waivers already from us contacting you or the waste hauler contacting you about the amount of waste that you have. There are some waivers for different service levels, the amount of waste organic waste that you generate, and whether or not you would need a separate food waste collection service. The SB 1383 requirements has some of those similar waivers. They also have low population waivers and elevation waivers. What I wanted to point out is that the county will be sending out information about what is required for your business and what is required for your area. So there are some waivers, but none of the waivers exempt businesses from all requirements, only some of them. So please keep an eye out for the material that the county sends you so you know what's required in your area. Next slide, please. And the new state regulations require that the ordinance has an inspection and enforcement program. And we talked about this a little bit. I know businesses have already received some inspections from waste haulers. And this will just be an expansion onto that program for a lot of these requirements. So this will be on collection containers, checking to see if there's contamination, which a lot of times is already happening by the waste hauler when they come pick up the food waste containers. There's record keeping. If we need to do inspections for that, that would have to be available. We have to check occasionally for qualification of waivers and make sure businesses still qualify and make sure businesses are providing containers for employees, tenants, and customers. There's also inspections for the edible food program, which we're going to talk about more in a few minutes. There is an enforcement piece to the proposed ordinance, and I want to explain that our goal is to never have to do enforcement. We try to make recycling as easy as possible in Placer County by having the one container mixed waste system. It avoids businesses from having multiple containers. Some other jurisdictions may have 3 or 4 containers to meet some of these requirements, and that can be avoided in Placer County. So it will take care of a lot of the requirements. So we will not have to do enforcement on many different parts of the regulations because of that. So we try to make it as easy as possible. We're here to provide assistance, and we would like to help businesses reach compliance before there's any need for enforcement. The regulations allows us also to have a 2-year education period. And so we would be able to go out and do site visits, make phone calls, explain the requirements, and answer questions until 2024. And that's when enforcement would be required. And next slide, please. And I'm going to hand it over to Mike to talk about the edible food recovery program.
Great, thanks, Sadie. So yeah, I'm as I said in the beginning, I'm Mike. I'm with Placer County Environmental Health, and we've been working with environmental engineering to kind of help set up the edible food recovery program portion of SB 1383. Next slide, please. All right, so Hillary, if you wouldn't mind, could you throw out the third poll question there for donations? So yeah, this question is just a quick one to see how many of you are currently donating food already to a food bank or other food recovery organization. So basically, the edible food recovery program in a nutshell is as Sadie mentioned, donating a food that is still edible, that can be recovered, to organizations that can get it to folks who need it. So the goals are twofold: to get the food out of the landfills where it creates the harmful climate pollutants, and get it into the hands of people who need it. So real quick here, looking at the poll, it looks like about half of the folks here today are already donating food. So that's great. Thanks, Hillary. Yeah, so the edible food program, so the SB 1383 is obviously a large, all-encompassing laws. So the edible food portion of it applies mostly to larger food waste generators, not necessarily smaller businesses that don't have as big of a footprint. And as such, as a generator identified in SB 1383, it falls on you to make arrangements with food recovery organizations to donate your food, as much food as possible. Next slide, please. So this is a nice little infographic that CalRecycle made, kind of splitting up and showing the two different tiers of edible food generators. We have tier 1, which is the larger tier, larger grocery stores, supermarkets, food distributors, wholesale vendors, and such. So these businesses are subject to the SB 1383 requirements beginning January 1st of this year. So that's why we're rolling this all out and trying to get the ordinance passed and get this program up and running. But as far as the smaller tier 2 level facilities, restaurants, larger restaurants rather, hotels with food facilities, hospitals with cafeterias, large venues, schools and such, those are not going to be required to be in compliance or to really get their program up and running until January 1st of 2024. So in the meantime, we have plenty of resources and can help you get started on your way to being in compliance before the requirement even is even out there. Next slide, please. So as far as the requirements of being an edible food generator, so you're required to arrange to recover or donate rather the maximum amount of food that would otherwise be discarded to the trash. This is food that's still edible, food like maybe canned goods that have expired, things like that. Expirations aren't really food safety, it's more of a quality thing. So you could still donate that food and it can still be distributed to folks who need it. In donating your food, you have to do it. You can't be done in a verbal agreement with a food recovery organization. It needs to be through a contract or other written agreement with an organization. It could be with more than one organization if that's most convenient. No generators shall intentionally spoil any food. So part of the inspections, as we come in and do inspections, we'll be looking to see if there's food that may otherwise be perfectly viable to be donated, but maybe found in the trash and things like that. As a kind of looping back up to that second bullet, since you have to have written agreements, you'll need to keep records of all the organizations that you have agreements with. Keep copies of those contracts or written agreements on site for review. And you'll be required to keep logs of all the food the types of food that you donate, frequency of donation, quantities of food that you donate on any given date. So just basically keeping a nice binder full of logs of all the food you donated. And the last one is that you allow an inspector to come in and conduct an inspection, which most of you probably, sorry, next slide, please. Most of you are probably familiar with environmental health. We're the ones, we're your local health inspectors. Our inspectors are the ones coming in and doing biannual inspections for California Health and Safety Code. So our greater role in this SB 1383 legislation is there's a number of requirements in the law placed on the county and the jurisdictions. And so we're kind of stepping in to provide the education and outreach materials for the edible food program portion. Like I said, we are in contact with most of you kind of regularly anyway, so we're a perfect entity to be able to push updates and reminders and emails and flyers and things of that nature. We will be conducting annual inspections during at least one of our biannual routine retail food inspections. As such, the time spent that it will take for our inspectors to conduct these inspections, we've done some kind of preliminary estimates of what we feel will be a reasonable time for our staff to do the inspections. So we are going to propose to adopt a fee that most of you would receive an invoice from environmental health as it is annually for your health permit. So you would see a new line item in that annual invoice for the SB 1383 fee. And we're estimating roughly 30 minutes, half an hour of time spent per year, which comes out to about $100 a year on your invoice for the SB 1383 program. Additionally, we will be maintaining a list of food recovery services and food recovery organizations that you can utilize as a source to donate your food to. And that list will be maintained on the county website for you to access at any time. And additionally, we'll be conducting inspections at food recovery organizations as well. So not just the generators, the markets and supermarkets and restaurants, but also the food banks, the food pantries, and those organizations that are part of this program. They'll receive an annual inspection from our staff as well. Next slide, please. And finally, just some resources that we have available on our website. You see the link at the bottom. So we have this Safe Surplus Food Donation Toolkit. This was created back in 2017 in response to the California Good Samaritan Food Act. It's kind of just a helpful resource with a lot of information in it. I think it's about 18 pages long. It's got information about legal protections for you as an entity donating food, like how are you protected being a Good Samaritan, donating food for those who need it. It's got documentation or information about how you may qualify for tax deductions, tips for preventing food loss and preventing food waste. And it's also got some handy forms, sample forms that you can use, sample labels that you could place on food that is isolated and set aside to be donated. A sample log, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel and create your own food log. You can use the log that's in this toolkit to log what food is donated to which organization, what day, how many pounds, and things like that. So that, I think, is it for the edible food program. Next slide, please.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So next we're going to talk about the food recovery organizations. So Mike just explained that there's going to be some generators that are required to donate edible food. And so I wanted to give just a little bit of background about food recovery organizations and how it works in Placer County. So there's several different community groups that give food directly to people. But for Western Placer County areas, the Placer Food Bank is really one of the main hubs. And so we're required by the regulations to have a list of organizations that generators can connect with. And generators are welcome to contact those organizations if they would like to. But a lot of those organizations are already working with the Placer Food Bank and receiving food from them. So first, Jorge is available from the Placer Food Bank, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit next, and he can explain a little bit more about their program. And Michelle, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, great. And Jorge, can you hop on and explain the Placer Food Bank program a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. So the Placer Food Bank is a Feeding America affiliate. We actually serve the counties of Nevada and El Dorado as well. But in Placer County, we have, I should say as a whole, we work with about 91 nonprofit organizations. Within Placer County, we have about 70 organizations that we work with. About 10 of those organizations actually assist us in recovering some of that food. The generators that we work with primarily now are tier 1 generators. So the majority of the grocer retail vendors within Placer County, we are already partnered with. We're actually procuring the donations daily. We have 5 dedicated routes that go out and secure all the donations, essentially getting all the food, as we've been alluding to, any food that is edible comes our way. And then in turn, it's provided to those 70 organizations in Placer County. Last calendar year, we recovered about 4.3 million pounds of food. So as I mentioned, as far as the tier 1 generators, we work with about 45 tier 1 generators in Placer County. And it's as simple as we have 5 dedicated routes that essentially are going out daily and procuring the food, bringing it back to our warehouse, sorting it, packaging it, and then distributing it to the organizations that we are partnered with. So in short, that's what we do.
Thank you very much, Jorge. There's some contact information on this slide. I imagine one of the main contacts that most attendees will be interested in today is the contact for food generators. We're going to have that on a later slide. So if you have not had a chance to get that information, it's going to be available in the chat soon and on another slide. And then Michelle, can you go to the next slide, please? And then like the Placer Food Bank, the Sierra Community House is one of the main organizations for the eastern area of the county. Anne, can you hop on and tell us a little bit about your program, please?
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a representative from Sierra Community House. We have a lot of different programs, family strengthening, crisis intervention, legal, and I think pertaining to this discussion is our Hunger Relief program. So we are a food pantry located up in North Tahoe, Truckee. Our warehouse is actually in Truckee, so it's in Nevada County, but we do serve Placer County, primarily those in Tahoma, Tahoe City, up to along the lake to Kings Beach, and the parts of Placer County that are in Truckee as well. So kind of like Jorge explained, we do have a pretty robust food rescue program already, not quite as to the scale of Placer Food Bank, but we recovered about 50,000 pounds last year. Keep in mind during COVID, we did have to kind of decrease the amount that we could recover just due to our organizational capacity. But I think one opportunity coming down for this bill is working with those restaurants and increasing our capacity to be able to get food from restaurants, as we currently don't have that in our wheelhouse. So we don't have a commercial kitchen. So we are unable to rescue pre-packaged food. And that's something that we would like to see maybe come down the pipe from this bill, is increasing our capacity, maybe partnering with a commercial kitchen in the area, and being able to really package up already made food.
Great, thank you very much, Anne. And then next slide, please. So I just wanted to recap on that as well, that for generators that are not donating, if you're tier 2, you have a couple years until you are required to start donating. But the Placer Food Bank and the Sierra Community House are great resources to try to get connected, to get started with that program. So this slide has some resources for everyone. On the top, there's some information and tools that we discussed today. There's the Placer County website. We have some of the information about SB 1383 requirements on this webpage already that talks about how it will impact commercial businesses and residential generators in the county. And it gives kind of a summary of Placer County impacts. There's also a link to our edible food recovery page on here, where it will explain that program a little bit more. There's a bunch of FAQs on there where you could read a little bit more about generators that are required to participate. It also has the list of food recovery organizations, but many of those do not receive food directly from generators, although they're welcome to contact them. But on the main page, there's information for the Placer Food Bank and Sierra Community House as well. There's the food waste sorting guides that we looked at earlier. These are the posters where businesses or restaurants that have employees that sort food kind of in the back of the house, they could hang up these posters for their employees to use. There's the Feed It Forward toolkit that Mike talked about that has all the resources for the edible food recovery program. And then there's the proposed ordinance link, and the proposed ordinance to meet SB 1383 requirements that we covered today. And then the bottom portion is just all contact information. And so if you have any more questions for us after the town hall today, if something comes up, or later on, if you want to refer back to that, please feel free to call us or email us. So we're going to leave this resource page up for a little bit in case there's any information that you want to gather. We're also going to put it into the chat in case you want to take the links from there. And then Michelle is going to explain how to ask a question, and we'll move on to questions next from the group.
Yes, so if you wanted to ask a question, you can use the raise hand function. If you wanted to ask it out loud with everyone. Or you can go ahead and type your question into the Q&A. There's the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or it might be at the top. Go ahead and type that in, and one of our panelists will be happy to answer that. If you are just calling in and you're not on the computer, you can also push *9 on your phone, and that'll raise your hand. We'll see that. And when you're selected to speak, you'll want to hit *6 to unmute your phone, and then you can begin speaking. So we'll definitely prompt you if you have any questions. And at the moment, I'm not seeing any yet. I'm going to go ahead and post those links in the chat to everybody.
Could be free water. But since we're not on a meeting system, nobody would know. Yeah.
So again, if you're calling in and you want to ask a question, hit *9, or you can use the raise hand function on your Zoom if you want to ask a question. I think you explained things really well, both of you.
We're glad to answer any questions that anyone has about any of the topics we covered today. Please feel free to let us know. If you have questions about anything we didn't cover today and you'd prefer to email us, you're welcome to do that. But this is a great opportunity, especially for questions about the proposed ordinance or any new changes, about how to connect with the food recovery organizations. So if you have anything on your mind, please feel free to ask.
Well, let's see, we do have one question from the Q&A. It says, just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, we received the food waste bin recently, and with having K through 8 schools, we are seeing a challenge with throwing non-recyclable items in there. Your Mike, have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think what the question may be about is the issues with contamination and how to overcome those. If that's not what you're asking about, please feel free to let me know more. But that is a learning curve for a lot of businesses and schools that have children that have a separate food waste bin. It can also be for employees in the back of the house when employees have to start separating for food waste collection. I'm not sure if it's for students throwing contamination away, that can be a little bit harder. We also have some signs, different signs that I didn't pull up today that show if you have a separate food waste bin for students to use, that will show a picture and it has a bunch of different images of food waste that would go above one bin, or it maybe even something that could be a sticker placed on the bin. And then we have a separate sign for the trash that will have a bunch of images trying to tell students what to put in that bin. So I'm glad to give you those. If you could email us, that would be great. And then we can send those back to you if that would be helpful. If it's for employees with contamination and putting the wrong material in the food waste bin, those sorting guides may be helpful. We've also found that just talking to them and reminding them occasionally would be helpful. It's just kind of a new learning opportunity to get into a new routine of how to throw food away. But
and, sorry, some clarification from them was that yes, it's for kids throwing non-recyclable items in, and their question is, what do we do with the bin when this happens?
So the waste hauler does not want to collect food waste with contamination in it. And so if there is plastics and plates and different things being put in the food waste bin. And if it's more than something that could easily just be grabbed out, then that would need to go into your regular trash can until it's clean enough material that it doesn't have that contamination in it. So you would want to throw that away until the kids learn to do separation a little bit better. I also do want to mention that, and I'm not sure if the attendee can clarify the location or the different area. I would love for the attendee to call me though, or email me, and we can talk about this a little bit more and get into a little bit more details about their program and their location and what they're doing, and see if there's any other solutions.
Sadie, if I could chime in a little bit, I think what I've heard from some other people as well, and I can't remember where I heard this, but sometimes in the lunchroom setting, you might not want to have the kids have access to the food waste bins if it's hard to monitor that. And the kids are often going to throw other things in there. One thing to consider is maybe having the lunchroom monitor standing by the bin and watching the kids as they throw their stuff in the bins to guide them a little bit. Or maybe have the lunchroom staff collect their trays or their lunch waste, take it into the back and sort it into the right bin for them. Those are just some options maybe.
Thank you, Chris. But yeah, that would be great if that school can contact me. I'd be glad to talk about it more and also give those additional signs as well that might help.
Okay, I've got another question. Will individual contact information be provided to all at the end of this session?
There is contact information that was posted in the chat, so that I think the individual information you're looking for are maybe the panelists that talked today, but if there's an environmental health phone number and email that if you want to talk to Mike about any of the edible food program requirements, you would use that. And then there's a Placer County Environmental Engineering phone number and email. And so if you have any questions specifically for me, please feel free to use that one. There's also the food bank contact information on there. And so if you're wanting to connect with them, please use those numbers.
I'll throw my email into the chat box. So if you wanted to shoot me an email, I'm always able to answer anything.
And I can do that as well.
Okay, so I've got another question. Can you put the information and tool slide back on the main screen? So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. Give me a moment.
Okay. I'll talk to Michelle. Okay. Maybe she's a good person.
All right.
Okay, I'll give him both. That way he's got both.
Here we go. I also pasted all that information into the chat, but I understand a big block of stuff in the chat.
I'm still sitting at my desk, so I can't do that quick. I will meet you out there. Okay, bye.
I think we could just wait another minute and see if any more questions come in. Make sure everyone has a chance to take the resources out of the chat or off of this page that they want. And then this will end the town hall unless we have more questions. So please feel free to ask those. And
So
then,
I'm sorry, Sadie. Yeah, just a question about whether or not you want to provide your email, or would you prefer it go to the Placer Recycle?
so I did put my email address in the chat. So if anyone had any questions specifically for me, please feel free to email me. You're welcome to. It's, in case you can't see it, it's scaldas, scaldas @placer.ca.gov. And in case anyone's calling in, if you would like to call, my direct office line is 530-886-1106. So you're welcome to use that recycle email that we have. That will go to a team of us, and whoever specialize in that question or respond to you the fastest, you may be able to get a faster response that way. If you have a question specifically and you want to talk to me, please feel free to email me. I don't believe we're seeing any more questions. So I think we're going to end the town hall, but I really appreciate everyone coming and attending today. I hope it was helpful. If you have any feedback for us, please let us know. If there's any information that we didn't cover that you would like more information on, or any other topics of our programs that you would like to discuss more, we would love that feedback. So please feel free to email me those. And again, our website has a lot of helpful information as well. So you're welcome to go check it out and see if it has what you're looking for too. But thank you everyone for attending today, and thank you to all the panelists that joined and were available for the Q&A, and that also assisted with the presentation. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.